Welcome to our continuing study in the book of Ecclesiastes, and this session will see us going from verses 8 through the end of the chapter, verse 20. What is its distinct theme? The distinct theme is about money. Let me suggest to you that along with always talking very pointedly about personal sin and his life as the remedy for that sin and our asking for forgiveness of our sin, Jesus talked more about money than almost any other subject that's recorded for us in the Gospels. In verses 10 through 17, there are 4 myths of money that are brought about from the pen of Solomon. In verse 10, the myth is the more you have, the greater the satisfaction you possess. Number 2, in verses 11 and 12, is the more you have, the less trouble you'll have. Number 3, in verses 13 and 14, the more you have, the greater security you enjoy. And then in verses 15 through 17, the more you have, the less anxiety you feel about the future. Now, if you were just to sit with those for just a minute, each one of them has significant flaws to them. It would seem that satisfaction for most of us does not come from anything that we own, but it comes from the person that we know and the people of our life with whom we have great relationship. Those who have lots of money do not have any less trouble in this world than you and I do. And in fact, the security they think they enjoy is spoken of by Solomon in the book of Proverbs, quite frankly, as being like eagles that will spread their wings and fly away suddenly. In other words, that if we set our hearts and minds on making money, of gaining wealth, it can vanish very quickly, thus creating more anxiety in our life. So our security is always found not so much in money, not so much in our popularity, not so much in the prestige we may or may not enjoy, not even in the power that we might think that we yield. I'm going to suggest to you that our satisfaction in life is coming from a vibrant and growing relationship with God in the person of Jesus Christ. In verses 10 through 20, the management of money is seen. That money does not create contentment in verse 10, and verses 19 and 20, but that is in fact the gift of God. That trusting God is the cure for the worried mind, according to Matthew chapter 6 in the Sermon on the Mount. And that you can't take your money with you is clear from verses 15 and 16 of today's text, as well as picked up in Job chapter 1 and verse 20, where we read, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." So those, if you will, management tools about money found for us in verses 10 through 20 are as significant today as they were written by Solomon all those many centuries ago. But I want to end on a note of merriment. That's a great word, isn't it? Merriment. Perhaps we would use the synonym joy more often than that. But in verses 18 through 20, we're going to close this chapter listening to these words. Verse 18, "Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and to find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this too is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart." 3 things there, my friends. Number 1, there are 3 gifts from God to enjoy: to eat, to drink, to enjoy the labor of one's life and the gladness of heart that God pours into us. There are three responses, though, that the unbeliever often has: idolatry, indulgence, and ingratitude. Where you and I have not made money our God, but we thank God for it, there are those who worship it. They may not bow down to it in the time in which we live, but keeping it, growing it, and not using it perhaps to bring blessing to others certainly falls into the camp of idolatry. It is indulgent to spend our money only on ourselves and not to help those who have need. And if we're not thankful to God, who even gives us the very energy to make our living, our wealth, if you will, from the book of Deuteronomy, that does not speak of a satisfied soul and a sanctified life. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 22 says, "It's the blessing of God that makes one wealthy, and he adds no sorrow to it." And the three responses that we close this chapter with from the believer is that we love him, the Lord, we accept his provision, and we thank him for his blessings. A lot of comparisons and a lot of contrasts found for us in this latter section of Ecclesiastes chapter 5. It probably would be a good thing for you to read verses 8 through 20 slowly, prayerfully, and jot down just a couple of truths that you've learned and that you want to ask God to help you apply more powerfully through your life as we continue to live for him. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you soon on Another Moment with Mike as we begin Ecclesiastes chapter 6.